Thank you, Sanjay sir. Thank you so much. Now I welcome chief guest of today's evening, Dr. P.K. Khosla, Executive Director at Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDAC, Mohali, to address his speech. A topper in MTech of National Institute of Technology, Kurukshetra, India, and a PhD from Thapar University in domain of Electronics and Communication Engineering. Dr. P.K. Khosla is currently the Executive Director at Center for Development of Advanced Computing, Mohali. Here he heads multiple teams working in areas of cyber security, healthcare technologies, e-governance, artificial intelligence, supercomputing, AR, VR, and Agri-Electronics. Here he is leading teams working on national level and organizational level projects on cyber threat detection and automation of risk management projects. He is spearheading the cybersecurity initiatives of all CDAC centers as Chief Information Security Officer. He started in his career as Scientist B in prestigious Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO. There, he founded the much sought after Embedded Systems Division in the Terminal Ballistics Research Laboratory. The embedded products developed by him and his team have been successfully inducted into onboard systems such as missiles. His contributions in the field of science and technology has been acknowledged widely, and thus he has received several awards of eminence. Welcome, Dr. Khosla. The mic is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And at the outset, let me congratulate the organizers of the 6th edition of the global webinar on data protection and privacy to celebrate the Data Privacy Day on 28th of January 2022. And I must thank you all for allowing me the privilege of sharing my thoughts on this topic. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to loss of lives as well as loss of livelihoods. And currently we are facing third wave in India. We are also experiencing the cyber pandemic. In cyber pandemic, there's no second wave or third wave. There will be challenges of eternal waves. But at the same time, achieving the cyber superiority is not a utopian goal. If we take right measures, it is achievable. At this point of time, yes, the responsibilities amongst the various government organizations are divided as to who is responsible for what part of the cybersecurity. But the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, has the vision of making India the global hub of cybersecurity products. He has also stated that there's going to be a cybersecurity task force, a unified cybersecurity task force by March 2022. And we've also heard that the Personal Data Protection Bill of 2019 will become an act by 2022. But we need to brace up to combat the challenges. We need to get ready so that the technologies are in place when the PDP needs to be implemented in letter and spirit. But then the technologies behind implementation of PDP are largely in the domain of cybersecurity. And as the human race has progressed, so have the risks. The risks and mitigation techniques have also been different. If you see in the olden days, there used to be a fort and some trench around the fort, which is filled with water, and to enhance the security further so that the adversary does not reach the king. The crocodiles are left in that. And in the modern day, you hear of, earlier you heard of the Great Wall of China, which probably protected them for nearly 2000 years. But now we hear of Great Firewall of China. And what is our need? That we need to understand and implement the things accordingly. When it comes to the personal data protection, it has been rightly stated in the inaugural session that the growth of digital economy has expanded. The use of data as a critical means of communication between the persons is so crucial. The right to privacy is a fundamental right, and it is necessary. It's necessary to protect personal data as an essential facet of information privacy. It's necessary to create a collective culture that fosters a free and fair digital economy, respecting the informational privacy of individuals and ensuring empowerment. Progress and innovation through digital governance and inclusion will be the hallmark. The Personal Data Protection Bill of India aims to provide for protection of the privacy of individuals relating to their personal data, specify the flow and usage of personal data, creating a relationship of trust between persons and entities processing the personal data, protect the rights of individuals whose personal data are processed, to create a framework for organizational and technical measures in processing of data, laying down norms for social media intermediaries, cross-border transfers, accountability of entities, processing personal data, and remedies of unauthorized and harmful processing. And on top of it all, to establish a Data Protection Authority of India. If I remind you of the sensitive personal data, I'm talking about the personal data of the individuals which relates to the financial data, the health data, the official identifiers of the person, the sex life, the sexual orientation, the biometric data, the genetic data, the transgender data, the intersex data, the caste or the tribe data, or the religious or political belief or affiliation of a data principal. And when it comes to the organizational needs, any industrial organization collecting customer data will have to comply with the provisions of the PDP bill. And it is envisaged that there can be a penalty of up to 15 crores if the personal data in violation of the provisions is handled. Now, when you look at enforcing these privacy policies, we need to have securities at national level, need to have security at organizational levels. There are many common things and many diverse things, but all dimensions of the security need to be addressed. There should be technologies, right kind of technologies in place. The practices should be correct. The skills of the persons who are developing it need to be updated. The awareness amongst the masses, because security is everybody's business, and that needs to be practiced every day. So the awareness about those need to be brought in amongst the citizens and the netizens. The policies, of course, so important, which have been covered in the earlier session. And on top of it all, the people, myriad of people who are involved in the process. If I talk about technologies, there are many critical sectors: the defense sector, the telecom sector, the financial sector, the health sector, and the emergency services. I would term the supercritical sectors are the power, telecom, the emergency services, and all these heavily depend upon the imported systems. All these heavily depend upon the information technology. If I talk about the emergency services, the emergency response support systems, which in US they call number 911, and India we have 112. It has heavy dependence on information technology. You look at the way a call is initiated by a victim. It is received by a call taker. The call taker on her console gets the location of the victim, gets to know the profile of the victim, and the kind of distress which the victim has undergone. It is classified then and there, whether it's a crime against women or it's a accident case or whatever it is. They are enabled. The case is prepared. It is forwarded to a dispatch officer. Dispatch officer in turn gets to know the location of the victim as well as the nearest emergency response vehicle. That could be an ambulance, that could be a fire brigade, it could be a police vehicle. And they also have a wide display terminal in their vehicle and host of other equipment, the body-worn camera, the dash camera, and some PA system, wireless system, and so on. Now, the case, a lot of information is forwarded to the nearest emergency response vehicle. And when the emergency response vehicle is traveling towards the victim, he is shown the shortest route. He listens to the conversation that has taken place between the victim and the call taker. and the video of the scenario is sent back to the control room, and whole lot of it depends on information technology, whole lot of it depends on the internet, and in case the internet fails or it is denied intentionally, the dispatch officer will not be able to forward the case to the emergency response vehicle. The location of the victim and the emergency vehicle will not be known. So the dependence on internet is so high. And on top of it, there is a need, like sometimes the internet is denied deliberately in case of terrorism or in case of some andolan by the activists. It is deliberately denied, but then we don't have any provision that we selectively deny it. We allow them allow the law enforcing agencies the access to internet, and we disallow the activists. That kind of technologies need to be developed. And then if we have to maintain the cyber superiority, we need to understand what is the attack surface of our own. We need to enumerate the public facing infrastructure of our own, which is vulnerable. And at the same time, if we have to have superiority, we need to as well know the adversary's infrastructure and what is the attack surface over there. And to do that all and to capture the real-time situation, there's a need that the honeypots across the country, in every nook and corner, in every critical organization, critical infrastructure is positioned there, so that at a central location, the threat intelligence is available. And now, on top of it all, every mid-sized organization or a larger organization has a lot of IT assets. They themselves do not know what all they have. And some dormant asset can be exploited by or can be compromised by the adversary and utilized elsewhere for launching an attack from that particular dormant system. So there is a need that agentless automatic discovery of the IT assets is carried out, so that the organization knows what assets are there, what are the vulnerabilities in that, what are the threats to that, and what are the risk level. If that is known, at least the mitigation of risk is taken care of, and we are better prepared to handle the eventuality in case of an attack and when our data gets compromised. On similar lines, whether we go for a next generation firewall, an indigenous one, or a something equivalent of Great Firewall of India. See, we may not need to sniff every packet that comes in the way China probably does, but in case of a war, we may have to do it as well. So the technologies need to be put in place now, and we shouldn't be digging a well when the drought sets in. On similar lines, you see in China, they are not allowing access to the social media apps or other apps to their citizens. Not that they don't want to expose their citizens to the West, that they'll get to know that what is freedom of speech and what are the democratic values. They are all educated, they know it. It is the national security at the back of their mind that they have banned all these things. They have their own operating system, they have their own search engines, they have their own social engineering apps, and it is imperative that if we don't have our own operating system, we'll always be looking for a backdoor in the imported OS, which will be so hard to find. And now that the ransomware are rampant, and India is one of the worst sufferers of the ransomware, the technologies need to be in place to detect the ransomware, and it's possible. There are ways. If the data is random, the entropy is random. If the data is encrypted, the entropy of that data is constant. If the encryption is taking place in the ransomware attack, the disk movement also exhibits the signatures. You can leave your own agent in some of the places that when encryption takes place, the agent tells you, yes, the agent is getting encrypted. So you get alarmed and so on. There can be many ways to do it. And now that the personal data protection or the data protection technologies are going to come up in a big way, the encryption will find an increasing adoption as the world has adopted to the digital technologies in the COVID time. Now in the coming year, maybe in 2022 itself, you will see that the encryption finds its way into the organization's basic security architecture, and increasing adoption of encryption will take place. This will have a ripple effect. We can expect newer and updated applications providing data encryption solutions, and which will be launched for business in this coming year. On similar lines, the alerts are so many, the data and the logs are so many, which need to be processed to understand where are the alarms, where are the alerts, where are the incidents. A system like security information event management needs to be in place. There has to be a security orchestration and automation and response system which gets these alerts, finds out which is the genuine alert, responds to it in an automated manner. And unless we have that, it's not going to be easy to defend ourselves. Policies, it has been already talked about in the first lecture, and there can be, like, why can't all the organizations with 1,000 crore turnover and above have a CISO of their own, the Chief Information Security Officer of their own, so that they develop information security policies adequately, which are dovetailed to the business plans, and implement such policies as per international best practices. This would help stir the demand for skilled security professionals, products, and services. We may not like to sniff any packet, but we need to have the technologies to do it. And another dimension of the cybersecurity, the people. I would say a new dimension has got added now, which has a profound effect on the attack pattern. You look at defenders are people, the offenders are people. The man in the middle, who's a hacker, is a person, and he's trying to exploit a victim who's another person. And the dominant attack vectors are either through the USB device, or through a compromised trusted partner or a vendor, or a phishing mail, or a Trojan which looks like a benign software but actually it is malicious, a water hole where you are frequently visiting other websites, or an oversight in patching a software. These are all because of the people and awareness level or lack of awareness of the people. But on the other hand, there is another psychology of the people involved in the process. If you look at the colonial pipeline cyber attack which took place in US in the East Coast, you remember when the attack took place, sometimes in probably June last year, the fuel prices went up, the stock prices started going up, there was scarcity of fuel, and even in a country like US had to pay the ransom of the tune of 4.2 million in the process. And later on, a news came that the bitcoins were reversed also. We don't know the fact, but what has been reported is mechanism was similar in case of the large-scale power outage in Mumbai in October 2020. And the Ken has reported that it was a cyber attack from our adversaries, and it brought not only the blackout in the region, but also brought the local train network to a standstill. So that's a devastating effect. We need to prepare to defend ourselves against any such misadventures. And again, how it happens is these controls are not automated. They are manually exercised. If you have to shut down, you have to manually shut it down. But they play with the psychology of the operator. They know if so-and-so alarm comes up, the rule book says he will have to press so-and-so lever, which will make it shut down, and that's what they do it. Then we have to think of many alternatives. How do we get out of it? What is the redundant system, which also gives you the facts that whether it's a genuine alarm or a false alarm, and need to modify the rule books accordingly. The challenges before us that we need to address the key cybercrime and cybersecurity formats of 2022. The chief information officers and chief information security officers would need to face up the challenges and ensure cybersecurity systems carry out early detection, preemptively address the attacks before they become major incidents, ensure the configuration of the endpoint management, and to enable the InfoSec teams to protect organizational data that is being processed from anywhere and everywhere, literally. And to wrap it up, I would say whether defenders stay ahead of the curve or offenders, that shall determine the security resilience. The malware detection techniques need to switch from signature-based detection to AI-powered behavior-based detection techniques. Offenders are also adopting newer technologies such as ML poisoning of instructions to gain insights, which needs to be countered. Defense forces also have to give a chance to the indigenous technologies so that there is an accelerated pace of development in the field of cybersecurity. With this, I conclude my talk. I must thank you all for giving me an opportunity and also wish all the participants a happy learning. Thank you very much.